Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 40 of Be With Me in the book of 2 Corinthians. We're in a conflict between Paul and this group of so-called super apostles, and their pants are being pulled down a little bit. And we find out that they're not so super and they're not so apostles. So listen in here. We're going to jump right into Paul's fight with them in his argument. This is from 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 5. Indeed, I, Paul, consider that I am not in the least inferior to these super apostles. Let's put that in air quotes, super apostles. Even if I, Paul, am unskilled in speaking, I am not so in knowledge. Indeed, in every way we have made this plain to you in all things. Or that I commit a sin in humbling myself, so that you might be exalted, because I preached God's gospel to you free of charge. I robbed other churches by accepting support from them in order to serve you. And when I was with you and was in need, I did not burden anyone, for the brothers who came from Macedonia supplied my need. So I refrained and will refrain from burdening you in any way. As the truth of Christ is in me, this boasting of mine will not be silenced in the regions of Achaia. And why? Because I do not love you? God knows I do. And what I do, I will continue to do in order to undermine the claim of those who would like to claim that in their boasted mission, they work on the same terms as we do. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds. All right, so there's this, think of, a side A and a side B. We got the super apostles on one side, and they're disguising themselves. They're disguising their form, trying to make themselves more palatable and less inconvenient. My title today is Saying an Inconvenient Truth. So this message of Jesus, even the messengers of Jesus, it's going to be presented in an inconvenient way. And the super apostles are trying to make it as convenient as possible. So their proclamation is tied to profit. So there's money involved in here. And you can just see that Paul is separating money. He said, look, I'm not even going to take any support from you. I'm going to take some support from other people, have them supply my needs, so money doesn't come between us at all. Where the super apostles, this was a big part of their message. And it's not going to be based on form or skill of preaching. It's going to be plain and true, and he's going to give the kind of the cold hard facts, and it's going to be a little inconvenient. And then the super apostles here, we see that they're deceitful, and that means to be beguiled or swindled or led astray, essentially tricked. So they're going to be trying to trick the people of Corinth. And Paul just calls the truth here. He says, these people are servants of Satan. He really couldn't be more powerful in his opposition to them. And just like Satan disguises himself as this angel of light, so because bad guys always disguise themselves, these so-called super apostles are disguising themselves as apostles, and they're not apostles. So they're giving this easy and non-controversial and profitable and slick gospel that the itching ears of the Corinthians and everybody else wants to hear. And now Paul is going to say, look, this is the true way to do this. I'm going to approach you humbly, verse 7. I'm going to preach God's gospel to you. And quite honestly, that's going to be a little inconvenient. It's not going to have anything to do with profit. In fact, I'm going to take that off the table. So let's talk about the inconvenience of Christ's message. Well, at its foundation, it involves sin and error and change. Who wants to say, hey, I was wrong? Nobody. Secondly, he's like, okay, well, all right, let's get past step one, which I was wrong. How about the method? Well, can I work my way out? Can I be a nice guy? Can I earn my way out of my salvation? No, inconveniently, you can't. So number one, you're a sinner. That's inconvenient. Number two, you can't work your way out of it. Number three, who brings the message? Well, how about the slickest, superest, deceitful, disguised? No. Paul is saying the humble, the truth tellers, the one that's committed to knowledge, the one that's committed to you for the long term. And what's the mechanism? All right, so how do I get out of this problem? Well, it's going to involve something also inconvenient, which is suffering and even death and even sacrifice on a cross and paying a penalty. Like, whoa, that is some serious inconvenient business. Paul says, but this is based on love for you. And he says, even God knows that I do love you. And it's done under the watchful eye of God. So God knows everything I'm saying and my motivations behind it. So let's talk about opposition. So I, Paul, am here inconveniently to oppose these people that are masquerading as, true messengers. I'm going to continually make an argument against these deceitful workmen who have beguiled you and led you astray, who have been disguised as servants of the Lord, but really are servants of Satan. All right, so in conclusion, obviously, this truth of Jesus is inconvenient. Well, what is winsome about it? Well, here's the winsome thing about it, is that it's true. It addresses and confronts and fixes the two big problems that you have, which is, what can I do about my sin? And here's the inconvenient thing about it again, is there is no plan B. The whole Old Testament says, well, we're going to give this sacrificial system and it's just not going to work. And it's going to point you finally towards this one permanent, sufficient sacrifice of Jesus. So secondly is, what am I going to do about my death? And there's no plan B with this. Either you go to heaven and be with the Lord or you're not. So when you get to the pointy end of spiritual conviction, do you want these messengers of the so-called super apostles who are giving you, platitudes and convenient truths, which are just not true? Or do you want when you come to the pointy end of your conviction, do you want the message of this humble servant who's given you truth with knowledge, and it just so happens to be inconvenient and uncomfortable? Paul is saying, I'm opposing this fake super apostle a message, and I'm giving you a real super message, a real super savior, a real super sacrifice, a real super death, and a real super resurrection. So my charge and Paul's charge here is, let's choose the inconvenient, true super message. Thanks for listening.